Yeah, so what do you think? Shall we get started on today's lesson? Yeah, we are focusing today on academic writing task one, very common question type, looking at describing complex charts. We'll talk a bit about what a complex chart is in a minute, what it specifically is, and we'll look just now at what we're going to cover in today's session. So by the end of the session, you're going to be able to identify and select the key features of a complex chart. This is really important if you're aiming for a band 6 or above in the academic writing. You need to be able to highlight the key features, not just the details, but the overall trends and features, particularly in your overview. So we'll look at how to do that. We also are going to look at how to structure your task one essay using a clear structure to organize your ideas. This will help improve your score for cohesion and coherence. We'll look at each different part of the task one as well, how to write a good introduction, an overview, and 2 body paragraphs. This is the task with graphs or charts in task one. Yeah. And we will look at a range of language to describe quantities. And this is very useful language for almost any task one, particularly if you're looking at charts or graphs. So that's the plan for the session. I think before we dive in, I want to just do a quick overview, especially since it's the beginning of the year, on task one. Like what do you have to do for academic writing task one? So I've got a quick true or false activity. I'm going to show you some statements, and I'd like you to tell me if the statement is true or if it's false. So Neo, I can see you're ahead of the game here. For number one, in task one, you need to write a description of a set of data. Is that true or false? Yeah, absolutely true. You need to describe a set of data. So what about statement number 2? This data may be in the form of a chart, a diagram, or a process. Adeola is saying true for number 2. Ishwarya is true as well. Yep, you've got it. It can be a chart, a diagram, a process. Could also maybe be a map or a floor plan as well. Those are becoming increasingly common, okay? For number 3, you should write a minimum of 200 words. We'll look at the chart in a moment, Ali, don't worry. Okay, good. So what's the correct answer? I saw it flash by there, Iona. 150 words, minimum. Okay, minimum word count. Very good. And you should spend around 30 minutes on task one. Yeah, Tunliver saying false. Ahmed, false as well. Very good. Many of you are saying the correct answer, 20 minutes, right? Aim for 20 minutes. That will give you 40 minutes for task 2. Task 2 is more important, you get more marks, so spend more time on task 2. Okay. Question 5, you should try to interpret the data you're given. So you should draw conclusions, you should make inferences, interpretations about the data, about the chart. What does it mean? What does the graph mean? Nope, exactly. Shahela, it is false. You don't need to interpret it. You just need to describe the data. So say what you see, right? You should try and pick out the key trends, the key features, but you're not trying to say this graph tells us that, or this graph means that. You're just describing the data you see in front of you. Okay. Task 2, you can give lots of interpretation and opinion. Task 1, just description. Again, for question number 6, you should give a personal opinion. And Pujan, it looks like you've got it there as well. You're saying, no, that's right, no personal opinion. Save that for task 2. For statement 7, you should summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons where relevant. Of course, this is true, really important for band 7 or above. Select the main features. Okay, finally, statement number 8. I'm sure you're fine, so don't worry about it. Nobody's perfect. Okay, you should, for statement number 8, is this true or false? You should write a conclusion in your task 1 report. Good. Most of you are saying false. Adiola, you're saying never. I'm going to hedge this one. It's false, but it's optional, okay? If you write a 1-sentence conclusion at the end of your report, you're not going to lose marks, okay? But just the problem is you're likely to repeat the information you give earlier on in your overview. The most important part is the overview. Focus on getting that correct. You probably won't have time to write a conclusion, so don't worry about it. Okay, good. So guys, that was a quick overview of task 1. Hopefully that's been helpful for you. I noticed some of you are still just talking to me directly with all panelists. If you want to change your settings to all panelists and attendees, that will let everybody see your comments, okay? Great. So, hi there, Attila. Nice to see you. Okay, great. So, guys, we're going to look now at the chart we're going to be focusing on for this lesson. Now, we said that we're going to look at complex charts. This is an example of a complex chart, right? You get simple line graphs which talk about a change over time, okay? And then we're focusing more on changes. You get simple bar charts which tend to talk about amounts, quantities of things, and it's a snapshot of a specific moment in time. However, often in IELTS task 1, they like to make it difficult. So they combine the two types of chart. And this is why we call this a complex chart, because it has features of both the line graph over time, and it has features of the bar chart looking at quantity. So take a moment to look at this chart. Exactly, admin. How can we compare all the data with each other? So we'll look at a process to do this in a moment. And the first thing to do is to study the chart and read the title and try to identify what does the chart show, okay? So reading the title says the chart below shows information on employment rates across 6 countries in 1995 and 2005. So very good, Attila and Neo. It's talking about the employment rate, right? The number or the percentage of people in a country who have a job, right? That's what the topic is talking about. Now, it's a bit more detailed, and to unpack, we can ask ourselves some questions. So we can ask ourselves, what are the units that are being used here? You've said it's the number of employees. And I mean, it is about the number, but the chart shows us specifically the percentage, right? So we need to pay attention to the units that are used. We've also got some different groups that are compared here, okay? Yep, that's a pretty good paraphrase, Mustafa. Well done. We're going to look at another example in a moment, so hold on to that sentence, all right? Different groups compared. Very good, Can. We've got male and female, and we've got different countries, 6 different countries. We've also got different times, right? So what are the time periods that are being talked about here? Asim, you've said different years. Adiola, 1995 and 2005, exactly. So we're looking at a change over time as well. So there's a lot of information here. And thinking about the time period, what tenses are we going to use to describe this graph? Is it mostly about the past, the present, the future? Exactly, the time period is all in the past, both in the past. So we're going to be using primarily the past simple. Very good, Adam. We can also, for some variety, we can use the past perfect as well. And we'll look at how to do this a bit later on. But when you have all your data in the past, two time periods in the past, you can use past simple and past perfect. And that's all you will need to use here. Okay, right. So now that we've got an idea of the graph, what it's showing us about employment rates, it will be useful to look at the key features. So we want to think about the main trends, patterns, different events, okay? So we want to choose 2 to 4 main points, which will be the focus of our overview. There's a lot of information here. We don't have time to describe everything, so we need to be selective, okay? Very good, Z. You want to look at maybe the highest, okay? We'll look at these in a moment. To describe the key features in your overview. So, let's take a look. We'll discuss this in a moment, Attila. The overview is basically your summary. So we're trying to think, what does the data do? First of all, does it go up or down? So looking at this chart, is there an increase or a decrease overall between 1995 and 2005? Yeah, very good, Lim Raymond. You're saying the employment increases for both male and female over time. Exactly. So this is a key feature, right? It jumps out at us. Overall, the percentage increases in all categories. Then we can think about what are the highest or lowest points. You know, which countries or which genders have the highest. So Neo, very good. You're saying Iceland has the highest. Yep. For male. Very good. Yep. Now thinking about, yeah, and Australia and New Zealand for female are the lowest. Very good. Lowest is Australia. Exactly. So it's good to pick out a couple of high points and low points or overall categories. You can also think, you know, are there any big differences between the countries or between the genders? You know, anything that is you know, anything that's striking, any big differences. You can also ask, are there any big similarities as well? Anything you can group together so that you can describe them because they're similar. So we already said New Zealand and Australia are quite similar. So we could maybe discuss them together. Okay. Very good, Pujan, excellent. And then finally, you can think about how could I describe my description in two parts? How can I divide it into two paragraphs to make it easy? And we'll look at this in a moment. Okay, very good, Mustafa. Maybe male in one paragraph, female in another paragraph, or by time, Tanliva. Excellent. Okay, so we've got our understanding. Here are some key points you've identified already. More men than women are in employment in all 6 countries. Okay, that's our first key point. A second one is that the employment rates increased for all countries and for both genders. So this is a second key point you can pick out of the data. And we also have one more as well, which is about, it's a bit more general. For women, the employment rate it varied a lot, right, by different countries. Whereas for men, the employment rate was more similar. Okay, so you can, try to identify similarities and differences as well as changing. Good, exactly. So we've got our key points. We've looked at the graph. It's time to think about a structure that we can use. And we typically, for task 1, use a 4-paragraph structure. Sorry guys, my screen has just frozen, so I'm gonna hopefully bring this up for you in a second. There we go. Okay, so there's our 4 paragraphs. We've got, first paragraph is an introduction. Second paragraph is your overview. And then the third and fourth paragraphs are your body paragraphs, where you describe the chart in detail. Let's take a look. In the introduction, we're going to paraphrase the title to introduce what the chart shows. And we'll do this in 1 or 2 sentences. In our second paragraph, we're going to outline our 3 to 4 main points and trends. And we'll do this in about 2 to 4 sentences. In body paragraph A, we'll give some specific detail about the main points we described in our overview. And we'll support this with specific data and examples, about 3 to 5 sentences. And in body paragraph B, we'll do exactly the same. Expand on the remaining points in the overview, give specific data and examples. Admin, you can write 5 paragraphs. It's fine as long as you organize it logically. So if there are 3 categories, then you might want to split it into 3 body paragraphs and describe each category separately. Okay, it's possible you might run out of time as well. So, generally we recommend sticking to 4 paragraphs just because it's a standard one. And Urambol Leongia, you can write a short conclusion, 1 sentence, but it's not necessary, okay? You can still score very highly without the conclusion. We'll look at this in a moment, Miguel. So, Ankong, to separate them, it just makes it very clear to the examiner. This is my introduction. This is my overview. If you put them together, it's not going to make much difference either. It's just a stylistic choice. Okay, so it's really, really up to you. Okay, so guys, let's dive in and we'll take a look at the introduction, how we can write a really good introduction. So as some of you have said, we want to paraphrase the statement, the question, to say what the chart shows. And we can do this by paraphrasing the title of the chart and the question. Yes, admin, you can write the overview in last place. We recommend putting it in second position, just because it makes it stand out and it's more clear. So we can do this by using synonyms and grammar transformation, words with the same meaning and changing the grammar that's used in the question. You want to make sure that you're being accurate and precise, that you're saying exactly the same as what the question says and what the chart shows, but in your own words, okay? You don't need to change every word. There are some words that it's very difficult to find a synonym for, okay? So don't worry if you're repeating some of the same words, just don't copy the question word for word, all right? So let's take a look how we can paraphrase. Finally, don't write a list of more than 5 items. So for example, instead of saying, the chart shows employment in Australia, Switzerland, Iceland, UK, New Zealand, and USA, it's too long. The list is it's just a very long list. It's not a good style of writing. It's not academic. So try to summarize, try to make categories rather than making longer lists. 4 items, it's okay. You can put it in brackets, but more than that won't be, you'll lose marks for. Okay, so looking at the question, we've got some words we can paraphrase here. Shows, employment rates, countries, right? So here's an example. We can say the bar chart. Instead of saying shows, some of you have said it already. Dahlia, very good. Illustrates, Abdullah, excellent. Yeah, we can say illustrates. Here we've got illustrates employment rates. And remember, very important, it should be present tense, okay? The bar chart shows, the bar chart illustrates, the bar chart describes, present simple, okay? Very good, the percentage of employment, this is correct. We've got employment rate. Remember, you can also, add in an extra word, the percentage of people in employment, okay? And we want to be specific as well. Remember, to be precise. We've got, talking about male and female, Shokro, very good. You've said it by gender, excellent. We've got male, female, anywhere you see that, you can say by gender, okay? Short way to say male and female. And we want to then say the place. So we've got 6. Instead of saying 6 countries, what's a good synonym for countries? Very good, Tunliver. You can say nations, 6 nations. And then finally, we put the time, right? The time period usually comes at the end of the sentence. So we can say in 6 nations in both 1995 and 2005. Good. Tunlover, I would be careful about saying through a 10-year period, and Bektimur the same, because this is a bar chart. It's showing in each year, specific time. It's not a line graph showing all the information across the period. So it would be more specific to say in 1995 and 2005. okay, would be, yeah, a bit more clear. Good. If it's a line graph, absolutely, you can say over the period between this and this. Right. A couple of other ways we could say the bar chart compares the rate of employment. Here we've changed employment rate, just changed the word order between men and women instead of by gender. In 6 countries, we've kept it the same for the years 1995 to 2000. Okay, another way. Here's one more. We could say the bar chart shows the change in employment rates for men and women in 6 countries between 1995 and 2005. Okay. Very good, Rohan. That's fine. You should be specific. How many different countries? Okay. In amongst 6 different countries. Represent is okay. I would stick with illustrates or shows. Okay. Those two are very clear. The other ones have slightly different meanings. So to be very accurate, stick with illustrates or shows. Peter, it's not just Europe and North America though, right? Because we've got Australia and New Zealand as well. Right. Okay. Reveals not so good union. I would stick with illustrates. Okay. Right, guys, we're going to move on to look at the overview now. So main thing here, the overview is really important, right? If you just describe the detail with no overview, you can only get a band 5 for task achievement. If you have an overview, you can get a band 6. And if you have a good overview, you can get a band 7, right? So the overview really is key here to getting a high band score. So we already identified our 3 key features, right? We said that more men than women are employment in all 6 countries. We said that employment rates increased for all countries and both genders. And we said that employment rates for women varied a lot between different countries. So here are the 3 points we want to describe, right? So we're going to put them into an overview. Before we do that, we'll just quickly look at some useful language here for countable and uncountable. This is to describe quantities, okay? So here we've got some language we can use to describe quantities and comparing quantities. Some of them we can use with countable nouns. Some of them you can use with both. Some of them you can use with uncountable nouns. So, for example, less, the top one here, if I say less, can I use that with a countable, with both, or with uncountable? Very good, Peter. Less is with uncountable. So we can say less coffee, less water, but we can't say less cars, right? Exactly. What about more? Very good, Dahlia. That is 2. We can use it with both. We can say more coffee, more cars, right? So this one we use with both. But what about many more? Many more. Deliver thinks maybe both. I think Zoya, you're saying 1. Many more, yep, is with countable. Many more cars, right? If you wanted to say uncountable, you need a different expression. So many more. What about fewer? Is that countable or uncountable? Very good, that's a 3. We say fewer, sorry, this one is countable, number 1. Fewer cars, fewer books, 1. The highest percentage of, if we say, is that countable or uncountable? Very good. Many of you are saying 1, and that is, let's see. Yep. What do you guys think? This one you can use with both, right? You can say, very good, Zoya and Buzena, the highest percentage of coffee, the highest percentage of cars, can be both. What about the majority of? If we say the majority of, yeah, there's some disagreement. Some of you think 1, some of you think 2. If you use the majority of, you can only use this with countable. So the majority of people, the majority of employers, this will be just for countable. What about much more? If we want to say much more. Some of you think this is countable, but much comes with uncountable nouns. So this will be 3. Much more coffee, much more water. Okay, good. What about the greatest number of? If we say the greatest number. Very good, because of number, yep, it's going to be countable. And what about proportion? A lower proportion of. Yeah, many of you think this will be uncountable. It's actually for both, right? Percentage and proportion you can use for both classes of noun, right? So they're very useful to know. Finally, far less. We're saying far less. Here, less is the same with uncountable, so it's going to be 3. Well done, Min. I'm going to say far less. So there you go, guys. So this is just some useful language that you can use to make comparisons and to describe the quantities, to describe the most, the majority, the highest, the lowest. Very useful for your overview and also for your detailed paragraphs. So let's try to put in some of this language into our overview now, right? We've got our keyword here, overall, right? Please, please, please start your overview with overall. It makes it very clear to the examiner, here is my overview, okay? So you will definitely get a band 6 at least if you have that included, right? We then want to say that more men than women were employed in all countries. So through, we'll look at this now. Overall, a higher something of men were employed than women in all 6 countries. Very good. Yep, Z, Lim Raymond, you've got it, a higher percentage. Excellent. Of men were employed than women in all 6 countries. What's the missing word here? In yes, Pujan, you can use that to frame your sentence. Excuse me. Very good. I would stick with percentage or proportion here, okay? Sorry guys, very cold here in Scotland, so I've got a bit of a sore throat. Let's see. Very good, Tran, both, exactly, in both years, right? You're talking about 2 separate specific years. Okay. Overall, a higher percentage of men were employed than women in all 6 countries in both years. We then have our next key feature. which is employment rates increased. So for both, very good, both genders, excellent. Sorry, Yuran Bolonria, what would you like me to explain if you can add your question? Employment for both genders increased in, and we've got nation. So we can say, we can say, yep, genders in each nation, okay, or every nation would be fine. So employment for both genders increased in each nation over the period. Good. And finally, we want to say employment rates for women varied a lot between different countries. So employment rates increased, and we want to make a contrast. So we can say, however, yeah. However, what's the missing word? The something of women. Some of you said this earlier. So is it the number of women or the proportion, possibly? Yeah, very good. We can say the proportion of women varied. And instead of saying a lot, this is not very formal. So what's another word for a lot? Yeah, very good, guys. We're looking for an adverb here. It varied a lot. It varied greatly. It varied, we can say, significantly across the various countries. Okay, very good. Drastically would be good as well, Z. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So guys, this is our overview, okay? Very clear summary of the key points. Let's move on, take a quick look at the linking expressions we've used. So we've used overall, and we've used however here, okay, to contrast. We also have some different time expressions. We've got in both years. So this is in 2005 and 1995. Dramatically would be good. Yep. Good. Beautifully, maybe not as accurate there. It's very poetic though. So yes, very dramatically would be good. Okay. We've also got over the period as well, instead of repeating in both years. All right. We've also got the synonym for country. So instead of saying 6 countries, we've said in each nation. And here we've got across the various countries. So a few different ways of expressing this. Substantially as well, Pasala. Very good. Okay. Finally, we've got some useful language for expressing quantities. Higher percentage of, we've got the proportion of, okay? Very good. Okay, so guys, this is our overview. I hope that's clear for you. Let's move on to describe the different details, all right? So we've talked about the body paragraphs. We're gonna have 2 body paragraphs. We think we can split them into a few different ways, right? We could talk about men and women, and men in one paragraph, women in another paragraph. We could talk about the highest countries and the lowest countries. We could describe it by country, right? We could also describe it by year. One paragraph on 1995, one paragraph on 2005. Now, There are different ways to do this, but I think the most logical one here is to divide it by male and female, right? Because that lets you compare the years, but you're still quite focused on one data point. Okay, so let's see. Yes, Galaxy, looking at the graph in more detail, we can see that would be an okay way to start your paragraph. Okay, looking at the graph in more detail, we can see that and Pujanya, an analysis of the bar graph reveals that. Yeah, it's quite nice as well. That would be a good way to start your body paragraph. Okay. I've not been so fancy here. I've just gone straight in. Iceland had the something percentage of men in the workforce over the period. What's the missing word there? It had the highest percentage of men, exactly, in the workforce over the period. Whenever we make a statement like this, we need to be specific. We need to give specific data to support that. So with a rate of around something in 1995, what's the missing word here? With a rate of around, yep, I think there's a bit of a lag, guys. Very good, 71, 80, excellent. Yeah, around 70% in 1995, okay? Notice you don't have to give the specific number. And actually, it's nice to use language like around or roughly, approximately. This is more academic, okay? Because we're interested in the general number, not the, the exact number. Okay, so that's Iceland in 1995. Something to above 80% in 2005. Yeah. Increased. Very good, Neo. Think about the verb form here. It's not the main verb. We're adding extra information. Very good, Ellie. Increasing to. Here I've said rising to. Okay. Extra information, use the ing form to add that extra information. Rising to above 80% in 2005. Now, we talked about the highest, that's Iceland. Now let's talk about the lowest, which was the UK. No, to deliver, you need to use the ing form because it's not the main verb. The main verb here is had. Iceland had the highest percentage, right? And then this sentence is a subordinate clause. You're adding more information. So we don't use a main verb. We're using a ing form, okay? Very good, you guys. You are adding, yep. We can say in contrast, meanwhile is good. In contrast here at the beginning of the sentence fits, okay? To contrast. In the UK, in contrast, the UK had the, what? We've got the highest, so the opposite from this is going to be the lowest male employment rate at the beginning of the period at around 55%. Okay. Now, we can make another contrast here by saying by 2005, this had increased. So we can say, however, right? It was low. However, by 2005, this had increased to 70%. And again, we want to say it's not exactly 70%. It is roughly 70%. It's about 70%. It is approximately 70%. Okay. And so we're describing the change for each one. Hit the lowest point is not exactly right, Can. Reach the lowest point. But that would be better for a line graph, not for a bar chart, okay? Because there's only 2 points here. So we won't say it reaches. It's only if it goes down and then goes back up, right? Very good. This had increased to approximately 70%, reaching a level to Australia, New Zealand, and the USA. So this was, it's about the same, we want to say. So we can say reaching a similar, very good, similar level to Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. So we focused on the highest, we focused on the lowest, and in the last sentence, we've brought in the other 3 countries as well to mention them. Okay, good. A couple of things to notice, the linking expressions here, in contrast, however, okay, we've got a language for quantity. We said the highest percentage, the with a rate of around, above 80%, the lowest, about 55%, approximately 70%. Good question, Robert. We didn't mention Switzerland. There's so much information here. We don't have to describe everything, okay? You have to be selective for some of these graphs because there's so much information. It's really impossible to describe it all within the word count that you have, all right? Okay. We've also got the verb form here. We've got the, no, Thoy, that's not true. Sometimes it's impossible to describe everything, okay? You need, so don't worry about describing everything, just focus on the main features. Looking at the verb form, what tense are we using here? We've got Iceland had for the main verb. This is past simple. We've got the extra information with rising, the ing. We've got had again for past simple, and we've got had increased, our main verb in the past perfect. Notice by 2005, this had increased 2 times in the past. The later time we can describe using had increased, okay? Before the later time. Now, and we've also got the extra verb, ing there, reaching a similar level. Okay, excellent, guys. So, those are our verb forms there. We've now, I know we did mention 6 countries. We're going to describe Switzerland in the next paragraph. Okay, so we are going to mention it. We're just not going to talk about it in terms of the men. So here's Switzerland, our missing country. The country with the something proportion of women in the workforce was Switzerland, with 55% in 1995. What do you think, guys? Missing word here. We've got the highest proportion. Okay. Excellent. Mustafa, if you miss anything, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. The recording for this lesson will be up tomorrow. Okay. So, with 55% in 1995, something to just under 70% in 2005. So Here again, we want to use the extra verb, rising, okay? Rising to just under 70% in 2005. We've talked about the highest. We're now going to talk about Australia and New Zealand, which are the lowest. So we want to say it's the opposite. So we can say this contrasts sharply with Australia and New Zealand. That's right, Ravi. You could add that in, and that would make your writing even stronger. Yep. So that's great. In the test, realistically, when you're working to a word count and a time limit, it can be challenging to include everything. Okay, but that would be a nice way to include some information in the first paragraph too. Okay, excellent. So this contrasts sharply with Australia and New Zealand, where just over a something of the workforce were female in 1995. So what do we think? Here we're looking for a figure. That's right, Semal. Contrast here is a verb. In contrast is a conjunction. So it's the same word, but we're using it in a different way. And that shows variety in your language. Good. Just over a third, 26%. Here I've said quarter, okay, 25%. Just over a quarter of the workforce were female in 1995. We then can say this figure. Now notice by 2005. So this is a clue. Thu, you've said rose. This is good. It would be correct. For extra points, very good. Z had rocketed. Mary, excellent. Had ridden, has risen, had grown. Dimitri, here I'm looking for the past perfect, okay? Because we're talking about what happened before 2005, right? It's before a specific time in the past. So you can say it increased, but more specifically, it had increased because it happened before 2005, Rivaro. Okay. So plummet, not quite right, Thoy, because it increased. It didn't decrease. Plummet for good. Abdullah had grown. Good. Had soared. Excellent. Okay. Why are we using the past perfect? I can see a lot of you asking the question. So when we have two events in the past, right? We're talking about 2005. The figure increased between 1995 and 2005, right? Between those 2 points in the past. Now, when we're talking about what happened before a point in the past, what happened before 2005, we can use the past perfect. We can say before 2005, the figure had increased, okay? By 2005, the figure had increased. The figure had risen. This tells us that it happened between 1995 and 2005. So it's just a very specific meaning. It's very accurate. If you can use it accurately, it will improve your band score for grammar. Okay. If it was 2020, you'll need to use some future forms like it is expected to increase. It is expected to rise. it is predicted to rise, it is projected to increase, okay? This figure means the figure of, well, can anyone tell us, what does the figure in this paragraph mean? See if you can answer Dennis's question, okay? We'll check in a moment. Just to quickly move through. Yes, Maitran, another past before the past is confusing, okay? I suggest looking at a grammar resource online for a more detailed explanation of this, because it is a confusing concept. For different expressions, we've got with, we've got this contrasts sharply with, we've got where, okay? We've got our language for quantity, the highest proportion, we've got just under, we've got just over, and we've got around, okay, for giving our specific data. This is band 9, Adam. We'll look at that in a moment. We've got our verb forms. Again, we're just using simple past. We're using ing for extra detail in the subordinate clause. We are using present simple here because we're talking about the graph right now. And we've got past simple. We've also got present perfect, as we discussed, okay? Now, just to answer your question, Adam, this figure is talking about the number in the workforce. Very good, Mushfika. It's specifically talking about the percentage of women in the workforce in Australia and New Zealand. Okay, this figure is talking about the women in the workforce from Australia and New Zealand, and it's saying this figure had increased to about 40% by 2005. Yep, this is why we're practicing it, Oluwaseun. It is quite complex, okay? But hopefully this will help you to analyze it quickly and to describe it quickly. So, guys, looking at our full essay, you can see we've got 4 paragraphs. As we discussed, this would be a band 9. It's 179 words. It's long enough, and it does a good job of picking out the key information, okay? A few final tips before we go. Don't start making a plan. Don't start writing right away, okay? Stop, breathe, analyze the question, and make a plan before you start writing, okay? Very, very important. It'll help you to write more quickly. Don't spend more than 20 minutes on task 1. You need all the time for task 2. Don't count your words in the test. You can download the IELTS practice sheet from the IELTS website. You can, if you're doing the paper-based test, you can do your writing on the answer sheet. You can count how many lines you need to write 150 words. And then you know in the test, okay, if I write 15 words, that's 15 lines, that's 150 words, okay? Finally, do practice with a range of different chart types, okay? We have, we have other webinars on our YouTube channel, on pie charts, on line graphs, various different task 1 question types. So you can check them on our YouTube channel. If you could give us a like and a subscribe, that would be brilliant as well. It helps us to keep offering these webinars for free. So we appreciate it. Right, guys, that is our description of how to answer a complex chart. We've got a little bit of time for your questions now. So I can take a look at the Q&A and try to answer any of your questions. I'll bring that up just now. But yeah, thank you very much for joining. I hope you found that useful. And feel free to add any questions you have to the Q&A, and we'll spend a few minutes looking at them just now, okay? So, great. So while I'm bringing up the Q&A, which is taking a while to load, I'll try to answer some of your questions here. I can see some of you are asking about practice for typing or for writing. We do offer a speaking and writing evaluation service on our website, IELTSonlinetest.com. So if you're interested in getting feedback from an examiner, we have a team of qualified examiners who can take a look at your essay, take a look at your writing. We can give you very detailed feedback on your performance, which band score you're likely to get, what are the specific mistakes you're making and how you can correct them. This can be something really useful for you if you're planning to take the test soon. So do please check that out on our website if you're interested. Okay. Yeah, thank you guys. Welcome. I'm glad you found it useful. I know this question type is quite tricky, but with time you'll be able to analyze the question quickly and hopefully understand what you need to do very quickly. Right, guys. Time for a few of your questions here. We've got a question from Antram: where can I download the lesson? I'm afraid you won't be able to download the PowerPoint, Antram, but you can check out the recording on our YouTube channel. Okay, I'm putting the link to that in the chat. And let's see. We have a question from... Yeah, quite a few of you are asking, don't we need to describe all the countries? Like we didn't describe Switzerland, for example. If you can, that's great, right? But sometimes you will have too much information to describe, whether it's in the complex chart or it's describing a table. We'll just not have the time to describe every single category. As long as you pick out the key features, that will be enough, okay, to get a high score. Thank you very much, Foy. Happy New Year to you. I will pass on your well wishes to the team here. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, Rafat, don't worry, the video will be up on our channel soon, okay? Another good question here from Mushfika. Can I use the same words 2 or 3 times? Yes, you can, okay? It's fine to repeat yourself. We do it all the time in academic writing. Bektamur, same question. You can, some words, they don't really have obvious synonyms. It's fine to repeat them. In this essay, it's band 9. We've repeated the word employment, again and again. It's very clear, okay? Often students try to change the words they use to avoid repetition, but they end up either using very obscure, unusual words that don't sound correct, or their grammar and word collocation are incorrect as well. It's much better to be clear and simple and accurate. Even if you repeat the word, that's fine, as long as that will make it easy for the examiner to read and to understand what you're saying. So don't be afraid to repeat the words, okay? Just try not to copy, chunks of the question again and again. Try to, change the word order so you're not just repeating or copying the question. Okay, great. No, Dotan, you can repeat the word. You can repeat the word, okay? Let's see. Question from Anonymous. Are processes or maps less likely to appear in the exam? I think they're getting quite common now, Anonymous. It seems like IELTS are setting processes, diagrams, maps more frequently than they used to. They used to just come up every now and then. It seems to be more common. So do prepare to describe a map or a diagram as well. Okay. Let's see. Adam, no, you don't get to pause in the listening section. You just hear it one time and you've got to catch everything the first time. So really important to stay focused. Okay. Right. Excellent, guys. I'm afraid we have gone over a little bit, everyone. So I'm going to have to wrap up there. I'm not going to have a chance to get through all your questions. So I'm sorry if you've been waiting patiently for me to answer your question. However, you can post your questions as comments on our YouTube channel. You can get in touch via the Facebook as well. And we do answer your questions on YouTube. So please reach out that way. And we have another webinar on Monday next week at the same time. So hopefully you can join us for that as well. Okay, so I'm gonna sign out for today. It's been great teaching you. I'm glad you've enjoyed the session. Thank you. And yeah, best of luck with your studies. Hopefully see you very soon in another webinar. So thank you, guys. Best of luck, and I'll see you soon. Okay, bye for now.